Okay, good morning. This is day 125 of making little videos that describe a day or thought in the life of schizophrenic Dominic. I expressed some amount of sanity amidst the world going crazy and warring upon me, then telling everybody that I was diseased or crazy. I've experienced schizophrenia, but I believe it is a reality to be experienced and that I'm not diseased or crazy. I have written a book on medium.com that is for free. It needs to be edited. I think it is ample enough to read, and I think it is imperative to be read sooner rather than later. And I don't believe it's not being read because of its quality, although the quality could improve. And I've written on, or I have submitted a video on day 17 of these videos to describe why I call myself schizophrenic versus targeted individual. And on day 45, I express why I make these videos in the first place. And I give little thoughts and things from my day. Sometimes it involves synchronicity, sometimes it doesn't. And if you follow some of what I've been doing here, you may have noticed some synchronicity between Gavin Newsome and Donald Trump and what's going on with the supposed riots in LA and stuff like that. Or you may not. I don't know. It's a little hard to explain that, but I don't know. I was going to talk about today. Gavin Newsom is. I liked his talk that he gave, the interview he gave on MSNBC this morning, or yesterday afternoon, I guess it was, or I don't know when. But it had to do with Trump or the Homeland Security threatening to arrest elected officials, and Gavin Newsom said, "Go ahead and arrest me." And I thought it was a very intelligent response that he had to the administration threatening to arrest him. And then Trump this morning said, "I would arrest him." And I think Trump is making a reference to when I said I would have been tempted to throw a bottle at ICE agents when I said that. So he's saying I would arrest Gavin. And so I think that's related to, that's why he used the phrase I would, because I said I would have been tempted. So, anyways, uh, Gavin Newsom gave a good response, and so that's what's going on today in our neck of the woods. And so they're threatening to arrest elected officials. Makes you wonder if we're headed towards a California secession or something, or I don't know. It's something's going on, something big is going on, but I'm not really sure. Anyways, so I saw Ken Cuccinelli was on TV this morning, and he was saying things that he was using as a main reason for the reason why they have to deport every single person that's an undocumented person in the country. And his one of the main reasons he gave was that immigrants depress wages. And it's just disingenuous that he would say that he is for raising wages or using that as an excuse because he works for the Trump administration, which is the biggest corporate behemoth administration probably ever. And they don't care about raising wages. They're not passing laws to share revenue or profit sharing in companies or anything like that. They're not capping they're not capping pay, billionaire pay or whatever. They're not doing any of those kind of things. They're not raising the minimum wage. They want the minimum wage to be $7 an hour across the country. He was really for, and they're making me itch my head right now as I talk about this because they're saying that Ken Cuccinelli doesn't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, see, they keep doing that. It's to discredit me. Uh, so anyways, they're not for raising pay. If they were really for raising pay, they would make all the immigrants in this country citizens. They would practice political integration. They would support governments around the world that raise wages. They're not for doing any of those things, so they're liars, and they're being disingenuous when they tell you they're for raising people's wages. And that's why they have to sacrifice people in our communities now. So they're pitting the poor people against each other, and they're saying it's like a game of Survivor, you know, or the Hunger Games. They're saying they're pitting the people. It's like literally Hunger Games. They're pitting people against each other, and they're not really for raising wages. So this reason that he's giving is just disingenuous reason that he's giving for uh, deporting every single immigrant in the country. And yeah, and this guy has called immigration an invasion before, and he uses rhetoric like that, like a Nazi. And so I was gonna just point that out. And if you think about it, like think about it even more, like this Ken Cuccinelli, he wants supposedly to raise wages. Well, what are people going to use those wages for? They cut the national endowment for the arts. They cut museums. Like, what are people going to spend their wages on when they have this supposed high wages? Are they going to hunt? They're going to spend it on guns to hunt people in their community or something. Like, I don't know. But in his world, what world do they want? It's like, and so like it's the Hunger Games that they want, and they're liars, and so don't fall for their BS because it's fake. They're not for raising people's wages. All right. In any event, I said something else I was going to point out today, and this has to do with the fact that immigrants are more American than imperialist Americans. So American imperialists are not in line with American tradition at the American ultimate founding tradition of the country compared to immigrants who are running from exploitation and want a better opportunity and freedom in America. Okay? So, like, if you want America to do business in other countries, ignore climate change and support authoritarian regimes or regimes in American interests. But when those people from those countries migrate to your country in America and you don't want them to have a say on policy, you may not want democracy, but would rather be an empire, something the Americans of 1776 opposed. So, who's more American, an immigrant wanting citizenship on run from exploitation, or modern day American imperialists? And, this notion that the people waving the American flag are the true Americans, and they're more American than everybody else, and they take ownership of the flag and everything. And I know they're making a big deal out of like, they like to make a big deal out of like an immigrant waving a Mexican flag or something, but you don't know. That could be somebody, that could be ICE themselves waving the Mexican flag, or it could be an immigrant that's saying like, "Screw you! If you're not going to give me citizenship in your country, then I'm going to wave this flag." Or they're just proud of their heritage in Mexico or something. You know, there's people that have that ideation, but it's not like it's you know people wearing American flags acting like they're more American than the immigrant. In culture, you're not really that American in tradition, really, I would say, from what I learned about American tradition. And so, yeah, that's my thought on it. And so, you know, as people are calling what's going on a revolution or something like that. And Trump was saying that there was going to be like an obliteration of LA if he didn't step in with 2,000 National Guard troops, and so it doesn't even add up. Like you sent 2,000 National Guard troops, and supposedly that stopped an obliteration of Los Angeles, and so I mean, how powerful are those 2,000 National Guard troops? I don't know. So, you know, all right. Uh, yeah, that's what I was going to talk about today, and for those few things. And so I was going to talk about physics. In physics, they'd say that free will is not really a thing, and so it made me think about brain control and the idea that a few people can create a system of brain control, satellite system which controls our brains by the AI or something. Or it makes you wonder how smart AI has been. Can AI time travel? And was it, if it was free will to make the AI, is it still free will? It's not free will anymore, you know? And so free will led to the lack of free will or something. So it made you wonder, like, physics say there's no such thing as free will. Physicists say there's no such thing as free will. And then it makes you think about like brain control and like how much free will do we really have? And I wonder how much that factors into the physics. And I don't really know. Uh, in another thing I was thinking about is that like supposedly our consciousness. I'm gonna get a book. Uh, Deepak Chopra has a book, and after I gotta finish one of my books. I'm literally in the middle of like 20 books, and I read really slowly out of them, a little bit at a time, at a certain set of books every day. And so I have not yet to finish a book this year. So, but I read slowly and I take my time reading them and I think about the things in them as I read them. So it works for me, but I don't think it's like something everybody should do. It just works for me. And one of the reasons I do it is for the synchronicity, like to get the messages through time and stuff. And so, anyways, what I was going to say is that there was a new scientific discovery going on that says that there's a quantum mechanic level to our thoughts in our brains, and that quantum physics explains the thoughts in our brains to some degree. That it's quantum mechanics, I guess. So there's like little uh, quantum level molecular, I don't know what it is or whatever, in our brain cell or in our atoms or in our brain or whatever, and that is connected to the universe. And so our ideas and thoughts supposedly come from the universe, or that we're connected to all time and all physical space in the universe or whatever. So that could be where imagination comes from, you know? So if you think about that, like when you think about someone's imagination, if that's the whole adage of like, if you can imagine it, then it exists in the universe, supposedly, right? So I don't know, that's kind of interesting, and it's very interesting. Another thing I read about was that another interesting I read about yesterday. This is a day or thought in the life of schizophrenic. Me, any person can think or do these things too, but like, I read about a like I'm a regular person too, So I share this to show like I'm a regular person. I'm just thinking this, and I've been inflicted schizophrenia, and so I think like a regular person, obviously, right? I think that's what I'm trying to get across here. Uh, but the black holes. Supposedly, black holes are windows into other universes, and so like they're windows into parallel worlds. Supposedly, our world could exist inside of a black hole. Our universe could exist inside of a black hole, and so that's another interesting thing that's, I guess, it's being discovered, or it's a theory about black holes. It's not necessarily a discovery because I don't. For as far as I know, we have been to them, but who knows what's going on out there. Anyways, so that was all an interesting thought the other day of my life. And the other thing I was gonna say is every time there was a fog, I think 2 days ago, and uh, every time there's a fog, it makes me think of Kobe and the helicopter crash. And I started thinking like I really hope that that is not real and that he faked his death or whatever. But then you never know if it was or not. And it reminds me of, you know, the synchronicity I had. Like I'll share this again, but I shared it in another episode. I had gone to a Catholic church that morning, and I still believe that Kobe, when I was a kid, I was linked up to a satellite system, and I was linked up to a system which is linked to Kobe Bryant for basketball and stuff. Obviously, I'm nowhere near as good or anything like that, but I do think that happened, and you know, I think I was linked to Kobe, and so that event that happened with uh, the event with the helicopter crash. I had the synchronicity where I went to the church that morning. Kobe went to the church. I went to the church that afternoon. Kobe went to the church that morning, and then the priest was talking about being in a fog, and so I had heard that, and Kobe had been in a fog or whatever, and that happened the same time. So, uh, like I say, every time I see a fog, I think of Kobe. So, all right. Sorry to stop this time, but I went a little over. Goodbye.